Hi, everyone. It's Jason and Kat here. Thanks so much for waiting for a couple minutes there. We had a little connectivity Wi-Fi issue, but we're here and ready to get started with our More Clients, Less Effort live stream today, where Kat and I are going to talk about one of our favorite things, actually two of our favorite things, finding awesome clients and scaling your business, and what's the relationship between the two of them. And we want to give you some specific ideas that you can put into action to find more awesome clients and unlock that next level of income and impact in your business. Very, very quickly, we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves because we just want to get right into the content. We've got a lot going on here. I know some of you are here because you know me. Some might be here because you know Kat. Kat, you want to give a quick intro to yourself?
I'm amazing. That's all you need to know.
You are amazing.
What I do is I am a force multiplier. What that means is I take what you've got and I make it bigger, better, and convert faster. I focus a lot on marketing and lead generation on the organic side for high ticket sales. And it's all about playing more, having more engagement and fun, and building a pipeline full of people who are not only ready, but getting ready to buy.
Awesome. And my name is Jason Van Orden, and I am a business strategist that works with coaches and consultants to help you to tweak your offers to make them more scalable and also adjust your client enrollment and your client enrollment processes so that they're more scalable as well. We find the bottlenecks and we get rid of them. And that's one of the things we want to help you do here today. So, Kat, here's what I thought we could start out. You know, we both work with a lot of people who have great businesses. They're awesome consultants and coaches. They're doing great work with their clients, but they feel like maybe they've hit a ceiling or they're just working harder than they should have to in order to maintain what they've been able to achieve. But they're just not quite sure what to tweak, what to change in order to break through that ceiling and open up new capacity in their income and their impact. We want to help more people as well. And so let's just start by talking a little bit here about what do you think? I mean, yeah, what do you think are some of the most overlooked things when it comes to scaling your business, especially as it relates to marketing to find and enroll new clients? So it's just like make a little list and we can start diving into each of those a little bit more.
So I might get a lot of hate for this.
Okay.
But here's the thing, and I've worked in multiple different sizes of business, all the way from people starting their businesses all the way to 8 figures. I love fixing the same problem over and over again, which is all focused on this exact issue, which is how do you scale given access to certain resources? And what I see time and time again is that there are certain core foundational aspects that are not in place. And what that really comes down to is your client is a human being. They have problems, they have experiences, they have likely made investments and been taken advantage of. And so they're bringing personal trauma, business trauma, all kinds. They're bringing their whole beautiful selves to the relationship. And I think a lot of people just do not understand how to engage and work with someone in that capacity, but also how to build a community around them. So it's not just this credit card swipe, right? There is this aspect of what are you building, not just with a strategy, but what's the strategy behind the strategy? Let me give you an example. So all of us have experienced this. I would bet hard money on this. We've all opted in for something, got it, and it was a hot piece of garbage. So technically that person had a strategy. It worked. They had copy that converted. They had an opt-in, they delivered a product, all this other stuff, but they missed the biggest opportunity, which was actually delivering any kind of value to you whatsoever. And so that piece of the client experience doesn't happen when they first sign up. It happens from the first interaction. But the problem is most people don't know when someone first interacts with them. So you have to have a strategy behind the strategy in order to move people. And I have something that I call a conversion bullseye, which is off the bullseye, the holes in the wall, those are all your cold contacts, right? The ones that are missing. What we're trying to do is bring them to the bullseye. So they're going down the rungs and we've got to move them from connection to conversation to closed. And if you understand that that's the relationship, that's the experience, then you can be strategic with the kind of interaction that someone has with you, even if you're not having one-on-one conversation.
Yeah, you've touched on something that's really important here. And that is that I mean, we all know that people show up at different phases and levels of awareness. Some are ready and just like, as soon as they find us, they'll be like, I think I found what I'm looking for. Please, let's get on the phone. And some, they could be around for a couple of years following your stuff before the timing and everything aligns. And so part of the problem is that a lot of coaches and consultants don't have like a system to take people through some of those phases. And you named some of those levels of awareness as well. And so there's all of this focus on the front end of like, well, I guess if I want to scale, I just need to find more people,
No,
bigger list,
monetize the
bigger
connections you already
audience.
have. God
Right,
damn it.
right. And so there's this big hole, like there's all this people coming in, and it's like pouring water into a bucket with a lot of holes in it. And
No,
the
it's
truth
like
is that,
pouring water next to the bucket. Like it's
right, there you
just,
go. There's no
it's not even
bucket.
getting in the bucket. Like no one's enjoying, no one's getting hydrated at this point.
No, yeah, and we know how important hydration is. Okay, so that's one thing. Definitely, I want to just underscore that takeaway is that you've got to have at the very least some kind of simple strategy that makes a full customer journey from the point that somebody first finds out about you to the point that they sign up to work with you, that there are certain calls to actions, steps, touch points with your brand that they're going through to get there, and that you have filters in place, you have and you have ways to figure out, well, who are the people right now that are ready to go, so you don't waste your time. That's another thing I wrote down here is one reason people struggle to scale with their marketing is they waste way too much time talking to people who just aren't ready yet, or just ultimately aren't going to be the right fit anyway.
Right.
Anything you would add to that?
Yeah. So, I would also add wasting their time doing things that have no business. Yes, the laundry has to be folded, but not right this second. So we all know that entrepreneurs are 300% more likely to have ADHD, recently diagnosed, just 4 months ago. And if not, I believe that you have the tendencies. And so it's really looking at how are you putting strategic effort? It all comes down to strategy. I hate work smarter, not harder. It just assumes that you're not intelligent in the first place. We're all smart. We wouldn't be doing this if we didn't have some capability. However, it's the strategic aspect of it. And so if you're going to have conversations, which if you don't have the client base right now that you want, right? And I don't care what revenue target you're at, whether you're at 7 figures, 8 figures, or just starting to cross 6 figures. If you don't have the client base that you have, then you have to open up your calendar for conversation. Now, are you being strategic with who you're talking to? Because you're going to hear no. How often? 97% of the time. So if you're going to hear no, are you building your pipeline? Because those no's can be turned into yeses. Most of us have built our entire businesses turning no's into yeses. And it's not just waiting for a referral to come in. It's both. You want to actively be doing lead generation and also be intentional as to how often you're putting and requesting in for referrals, because it's not a sideline activity, it's an active game. And what I mean is playing, having fun, not in terms of overcoming and dominating. So I would really add around, are you actually managing your CRM? Yeah, I'm going to say it. If you're not. Do you have key information? Do you know how to keep in touch? Are you building context? Are you using that context to reactivate and reengage? Because most people, that conversation you had 2 years ago with someone who's getting ready to buy now, the likelihood is if you had known who they were, you could probably help them buy sooner. You wouldn't have to wait 2 years having them consume your information, getting ready to a place. You could be of service, helping them understand that solving this problem is actually a priority for them. Because if they engaged you and started consuming your content, at some point, this was a priority, but most of us are letting them slip off. And that's a disservice to our clients because we're not helping them get bigger results faster.
Yeah. So that's the thing I want to underscore there. You mentioned CRM. So we've talked about customer journey or funnel, whatever you want to call it. You got to have something in place, and we can talk more about what that can look like here in a bit. And you got to have a CRM, a database, something where you are tracking. So you talked about the different rungs on the target. We're bringing in.
Are tracking. That means that you are inputting information. Your CRM is not going to do it automatically for you. It's only as good as the information you put in. And that is ultimately your responsibility as a CEO. I'm here to tell you the hard truths. Not you, Jason. I know you do your shit.
I could go into my database right now and tell you who has attended more than 2 or 3 of my workshops. I could tell you.
Oh my God,
I could find 5.
Sexy.
I could find 5 people right now that I have conversations with in the past year that I could follow up with and say exactly, hey, last time we talked, this is what we said. At the time, it wasn't right, but here's something else I'd like to propose if the timing is right. So this is the kind of thing you have to be able to do to start putting the water in the bucket and keeping some of it there as well. And if that's as simple as a spreadsheet at first or a Notion or whatever, that's fine. But you got to have a way of tracking the people who are actually showing interest, getting on calls, coming to workshops, engaging and interacting with that customer journey as you move them along.
Yeah, exactly. And anybody who's feeling overwhelmed or stressed out about it, have a conversation with either one of us. We can simplify it down to an easy modality and process. But honestly, the data is going to tell you more information around someone, their behavior. And here's the thing, all of these things that you're mentioning, this is buyer behavior. if you are tuned in to how your client shows up, what they're consuming in terms of information, and if you have that and you have that available to you, you use it as a reason to reach out. It's not being pitchy and sleazy and slimy if you say, hey, thanks for attending my last workshop, ... whatever it is you want to say. Now, if you do that and you say, hey, you look like you have a pulse and you might have a business, I have this workshop that would be amazing for you. Now you're pitchy Pete and you're no better than any of those sleazy, slimy smucks out there. But you've already built context. Why not leverage that to create more ease? So many people have already put strategic effort into their business, but they're constantly chasing and hunting to try to find somebody else to kill, to tripwire, to force to buy, when you already have a plethora of people around you that just need to be asked a different question. And so let me say it this way. Marketing is your opportunity to ask a different question someone can say yes to. I'm going to repeat that because most people miss it. Marketing is your opportunity to ask a different question someone can say yes to. Collect enough yeses and you'll get the big why, which is, yes, I want to work with you.
Awesome. So let me give people a couple action ideas that they could take here with this whole CRM database thing. And I guarantee if you do either of these two things, you're going to start seeing a difference in how you're able to follow up with and find clients. Okay. Either number one, and I know some people can go like, oh, really? Go into like, whether it's a spreadsheet or a Notion or whatever, I take a few notes about every single call that I have with somebody who might be a prospect. And there's a date, a few notes, who it was with, and then I mark if I think that they might be a fit for one of my programs and which one. And that's why I could go and find a list of 5, 10, even 20 people right now that I could reach out to and reference past conversations.
Yes.
It has been amazing. So that's one thing. If you get that habit going, it will be a big deal. Number two thing you could possibly do would be, if you haven't already, set up even if you're just using something like ConvertKit, that's not maybe a full CRM database, if you're at least tagging people as they are taking actions that indicate that they have interest. They're signing up for a workshop. They are showing, they're expressing interest in that new lead magnet that you're putting out. They've signed up to have some kind of call with you at some point. Like if you have tags inside your system, that's another way where you can at least talk intelligently and go back and look meaningfully at who are the people to be focusing on and bringing closer into the target in the timing that's right for both of you. So those two ideas that you could put into action. And like Kat said, these are things that we also can help you do in very simple way because there are tools. And when we say customer journey, it's not like you have to have this. I mean, yes, there are very complex, nuanced, sophisticated ways to do a customer journey. It can also simply be something like this. It can be that you have, usually here's what I tell people: have that one ideal client in mind, have 3 invites that you can use, over time, so that maybe you focus on one month, one another month, one on another month. And so those calls to action might be a lead magnet. It might be a workshop or something that if they raise their hand to it, it's telling you that they have top of mind a thing that you could help them with. And now it's your job to figure out if the timing is right and if they've got the resources and readiness to invest in working with you. So there's a few ideas for people to take away.
Yeah. Awesome.
So let's talk a little bit about that, the complexity thing. And just because really, I posted something recently where it's like, scaling with your marketing is actually often about more simplicity than it is. People think I got to add another marketing channel. I got to add yet another format of content that I'm putting out there. And that's like, maybe that could be helpful, but that's likely not the big leverage thing that you could do. Right. So what are some things that you see people doing that are too complex and they could actually simplify in order to scale? So more clients with less effort.
So I have 5 levels of leverage that I walk my clients through. The first level is you, right? So there's no business without you in it. And you're kind of doing all of the things, all of the hats, there's just no time to breathe. Then where I see people making a mistake is they start to try to add automation. And what you actually need to do first is document processes and systems. And here's the thing. The trick to it is let's document not theory, but actuality. And so what I mean is, in order to continue to leverage, you have to document success. It's not enough to say, here's how it should be, but I never do it this way, because then you're just going to pay people to learn on your dollar. The next aspect is to, once you have that process and system documented, you're looking at now starting to leverage tools, systems in terms of automation and things like that. Then we're looking at other aspects around, building your community around you. And then that includes your firework experiences. And so we're looking at this cyclical aspect of using this and looking at it as a modality to say, okay, where am I in this process? And how can I start optimizing all of these things? So if we're looking at, what are the biggest mistakes people are making? They're making it harder on themselves than they have to be. They try to skip ahead on steps instead of creating consistency first. And consistency comes down to foundational aspects. And one of the things I say is if you don't love your offer, you don't love your ideal client, you don't love your business model, then you're never going to be successful and you're never going to be able to scale. You have to love, and I mean love, doing and working with those three things. Once those are evident, then all of the other tactics and strategies start clicking and working.
Awesome. Love it. I want to look here at the comments, because we got a few comments that are coming in. And I'm glad that, so Janice asked this question. I'm glad that she did, because, we're talking, I mentioned there briefly that one of the things that can keep you from scaling is talking to too many unqualified people. So you're wasting a lot of time talking to the wrong people. So let's talk about maybe some of those criteria that we use, or ways that we use to identify, well, who are the people that are qualified? How do you know if they're the right person, if they are going to be able to pay you or not? And I actually did a post earlier this week, and I'll just read off these 5 criteria, but then I'd love to get your take on it as well, Kat. And so, yeah, this post said, look, your job is to find the prospects who fit these 5 criteria right here. So number 1 is that they are experiencing some kind of need, problem, challenge, and they're aware of it, and it's something that you know how to solve, right? So trying to avoid people who you're trying to show them that it's like, no, you really do need this, right? It's really hard to, unfortunately, sell prevention over like when something's actually urgent and present for people. Yeah. So that's number 1. So that you need that awareness of a need that you can help them with. Number 2, that they're starting to express some interest in your expertise and your services. And that might be engaging with your content, signing up for a lead magnet, signing up for a workshop, but something about the actions they're taking so that they have some interest in what it is that you're offering. Number 3, they are ready to invest and are motivated to do so now. So the timeline is such that it's not like, yeah, hey, I've been thinking about this, but this might be a someday later thing, but that they are actually indicating, now this is something that I need to do sooner rather than later, because it's going to cost me more to wait and put this aside. The obvious one that I probably should have said first is it just feels like an alignment between the two of you. I want to work with you. You want to work with me. We vibe. The values are there. The style is there of our approach, whatever the case may be. And then the big one, which I think gets a lot of us, is they can make a buying decision and have the ability to pay the rates that you want to charge. So are they aware of a need you can solve? Are they showing interest in your expertise? Are they motivated to do it sooner than later? Their timeline is now, not someday later. And are they in alignment? They vibe with you, you feel good about them, and do they have the money and the buying decision to be able to say yes? Let me come back to you, Kat. I'd love to get your take on any of those, or some of the things you do to figure out if those check marks, or if you disagree, you can disagree with me as well. Go for it.
No, well, so I love doing an approach that I call Sadie Hawkins marketing. So it's an old school terminology, but I prefer being asked out than necessarily asking everybody else out. It just makes me feel pretty and wanted, right? And so how do we create this experience where more people feel comfortable asking us out? So part of it is we need to reduce the risk, but the other aspect too is our authority, our expertise, our credibility, and our trust have to be firmly established. And that has everything to do with how someone interacts with us. And so we have a lot of control over how someone can engage, interact, and what they experience from those interactions. But everybody's here going like, I don't know, you just have to do this thing and this is a black box, and somehow, some way a client comes out. You have so much more control over your business than you're probably giving yourself credit for. Again, I'm going to say it again. You have more control over your business than you're probably giving yourself credit for. So if you start saying, what are the things I can control and what are the things I can't? I cannot make someone make a decision. That is not in my control. I'm not about that. I'm not here to say that you can mortgage your house in order to invest with me. That's the sleazy bro marketer strategy, not my game. But we want to look at, are you aware of what buyer questions look like for your niche and your industry? Right? So different niches, different industries, people behave in a different way. Are you aware that there are different buyer types? Do you sell the way that you buy? If you do, then you're leaving 4 other buyer types and buyer modalities off the table, which means that you're making it harder for people to buy from you. And you might actually be turning people away without realizing it, because you sell the way you buy. Most of us do, unless we become aware of the different modalities in which someone might engage. The other thing is are you actually solving, and you talked about this, are you solving a real problem? Or are you talking about clarity? Are you talking about confidence? Are you talking about these super fluffy things that mean one thing to someone and something to someone else, and that doesn't have any tangible component to it? If you have not productized your offer, created tangibility, what I like to say, concretability, right? Concretized, right?
Nice.
Have you concretized your outcomes, your goals, real things that people can count and touch as part of working and interacting with you? If you haven't, there's probably some kind of fraud factor or fear of success or something that's preventing you from owning your expertise and authority. And if you can't do that, no one's going to want to invest with you. And the other thing is making sure that you're driving value through each and every one of those experiences. And this is where the strategy comes in. Every interaction with you should solve some kind of small micro problem, not just for the sake of solving it and driving value, but to make someone a better buyer. Are you being intentional with everything you're putting out there? Or are you just going through like that bad opt-in where you're just kind of checking the boxes and superficially marketing, but not being intentional? Because that's another self-sabotage modality as well. So be intentional, take half a second more, put strategic effort into creating ease, and understand how things correlate and interact with each other. You are building an ecosystem that someone is experiencing. We've all been to shitty restaurants. Have we gone back? No. So you want to make sure that you're putting that intention in the forefront. And if you don't know how to do that, then work with someone like you or someone like me who can help you be strategic and intentional so that you're not wasting your time and honestly wasting your ideal client's time.
Yep. So one thing that, a lot of good stuff in there. I want to touch on this idea of, okay, actually, let's go to this question of people who have the ability to pay, because that's probably one of our biggest frustrations. You spend an hour on the phone, because you're a giving person and it's hard to say no or whatever. We all end up there sometimes just to find out that the person's like, oh yeah, I don't have any money for this, even though everything else seemed to be in line. Are there anything specific things you do, in your lead attraction qualification process to find out, or questions you ask when you are on the phone with somebody to sooner than later figure out, because it can seem weird to like, hey, do you have $5,000, $10,000, whatever, $2,000, whatever it is right now? And maybe some people ask that direct question. It works for them. I don't know, but I'm just curious, because it seems like that's something that some people are struggling with. If you have any thoughts there, and then I have a couple things I'd like to share on that.
Yeah. So it has to actually do a lot with the buyer personas. Different people need different information in order to make a buyer decision. Again, if we sell the way that we buy, then we tend to create this experience that someone would walk through that mirrors how we would want to be engaged and treated. It's kind of like you tend to do the love languages that you want to receive. And so if you're someone who's like acts of service, like you love that, then you tend to do that a lot for other people. What we want to learn is that everybody buys a different way, and you can create one system, one approach that helps each buyer get the information they need before the sales call. See, a lot of people are just booking the sales call and then kind of hiding, right? And they're doing what I call fence post marketing, which is they throw something over the fence and then they hide and then they kind of peek over every now and then to see if it's working. And so what you want to do instead is look at how can someone get to the information in the right timing. So if we're looking at, like, again, the bullseye, you don't want to reveal pricing until they're closer to the bullseye in terms of that target. If you're revealing pricing when someone's not, and you're high ticket, this is very focused on service providers, high ticket sales. You want to make sure that you're not alienating people before they understand the value, before they've seen the client testimonials, before they can see the results. So if you're not clearly conveying what someone can expect on average, not the best of the best, not all the worst case scenarios, but the average experience that someone can have by sharing a gamut of testimonials and case studies, right? That's one way of being able to do that. But being able to clearly convey what you do, all of this lands and enables someone to see the value of working with you when you're clear on the problem, when you're clear on your approach. Do you even have an image that describes your process? There are a lot of people who are visual consumers. And so if you are just talking all the time, as we see that I'm a verbal processor, then you're not hitting that buyer personality, which is also a learning personality. So we want to convey things in the different ways that people learn, which is also the different way that people buy. And you can create that with one experience, allowing people to get and click and access the information in the way that they want. So I would actually look at When are you revealing the price? After what level of interaction? How many times does someone have to experience you? At what depth before they start asking themselves the question, how much is it to work with her? How much is it? What would the investment be to work with him? Right? So you want to be able to almost anticipate that next question and then all of a sudden be like a magician and be like, well, I bet you've been wondering, how did they know? Right? Because you know your client behavior type. And so it's on you to invest the time, energy, and effort to discover that. And it's really easy when you've done it thousands of times, like we have, in terms of being able to establish a process that typically works 90% of the time. That might need a little tweaking, but people tend to not change too often in terms of how they buy. It's the how they get to the buying decision. Consumer behavior that ends up changing. Consumer demand also changes in terms of what they're wanting in terms of access, support, and things like that.
Awesome. Good stuff. So I'm going to add a few thoughts here in terms of filtering the right people and the wrong people out, whether it's by money, that has to do with money or whatever. And this goes back to that customer journey. And I look at the customer journey or marketing and sales as simply a series of consistent and patient invitations that continually move people forward at a pace that makes sense for both of you, right? And that starts from the very moment that you first grab their attention. So one of the first things you do to try to bring more people in that can afford you and are decision makers is with that ideal client profile and the messaging that you're using to attract people in the very beginning. So every one of these things needs to be intentional. One of those first calls to action that you might put in front of those people, again, it might be a lead magnet, it might be a workshop, it could be an event, could be a sample of your book, whatever the case may be, but choosing something very deliberate that with that buyer persona, that if they say yes to that, they are making strong indicators to some of those 5 criteria. And that can include the ability to pay and if they're the decision maker, right? And so here's just I'm going to, in no particular order, you don't have to do all of these things, but you want to think of every single call to action as a filter in or a filter out. And so some of the things might be, we've already mentioned, inviting them to a workshop or lead magnet, something like that, right? Some other things that you can do is that if there is any kind of phone call you're inviting people to do, I hope you have a form that they're filling out. And I hope that at least a couple of the questions on that form are what I call litmus test questions that very quickly tell you if they're the right person or not. It's also about offering that call at the right time. You want people on that call who have already started checking off most of those check boxes the 5 criteria that I talked about earlier. And then, sometimes, and then you can ask questions obviously on the phone as well. Like you said, some people, they'll just kind of hide and wait for people to sign up for the call, or they're just like, they get the call sign up and they're just like crossing their fingers that it goes well. What are you sending them in anticipation of that call? Is there like a short video? Is there a quick case study? Is there something that plants things in their mind or helps them maybe filter themselves in or out by what you're going to explain, so they know what to expect on the call, and then they're that much more prepared to be the right person? And there's nothing wrong with if somebody is indicating in one of these questions or one of the actions that they're not quite ready yet, just saying like, hey, happy to help you how I can. It doesn't seem like it's the right fit for this right now, but let me point you to this other resource, this other person, or whatever the case may be. You can still be helpful while not still giving away your time and wasting, both of your time as well. So think about every one of those calls to actions and those calls to action and those steps that you're putting out there, and are they helping you to indicate the right people or remove or filter out or just hold off on people until they are more prepared?
Right.
Anything to add to that?
No, I think it's really, and I think the piece that people miss all the time is ask, engage your people. Hey, I get it. It's a no right now. If it wasn't, let's say they used a money objection, which is only relevant actually 2% of the time. So if you had $50 million in your bank account, what else would cause you hesitation around making this investment? So even if it's a no right now, get information that helps with converting other people later down the line. But I think a lot of people really don't understand what buyer questions are and when they indicate that they're ready. And so I think there's also a lot of people who dismiss their ability, they dismiss themselves, they close the door before the door ever gets shut for them. And so that has a lot to do around rejection sensitivity and anticipating the no. And you just got to really look at, how are you approaching the sales conversation even? Are you like relieved if someone cancels a call? You might want to look into that, right? If you're already going into the call super attached, guess what? The likelihood is that's not going to close. So really looking at the energetics aspect of things and how you're coming into the business has a huge effect on the outcome as well.
Yeah.
And so it's not a fake it till you make it. It's I think it's more of a project it until you achieve it, right? And so really tapping into that higher self of that person who's already been there, done that, and looking at what is that being energy. Because if you're anything like me, you're an action taker. I'm not worried about you taking action. It's around looking at how you're showing up, because what you're tolerating, what you're dealing with, what you're holding on to mirrors itself out into what you're attracting as well. And so if there's a lot of frustrations in your business, sometimes you have to look internally first and see what you could be releasing within yourself to allow for more of that ease and flow. And I'm not here to say the work doesn't get done. This amount of work still needs to happen. Whether you or your team is doing it, it's still this. And so really looking at what are the systems and processes that you're putting in place to support you to make sure that you're focusing on the right actions. Because, what is it, Pareto's principle or Parkinson's law, is that you'll take as much time as you give yourself. So if you give yourself for an hour of lead generation, then you'll take an hour. If you give yourself all day, then guess what? You're going to take all day.
Right. So here's something I'd like to touch on, because I hear this a lot from coaches and consultants who, they want to grow and they're having trouble growing, is that they're doing a lot of networking and they're getting a lot of referrals, and both of those can be very effective. And particularly when you're early on in your coaching and consulting career, like that's, you got to pound the pavement a little bit, right? It's going to be more outbound. It's going to be more getting out there, talking to people, engaging. And of course, over time, you're hoping that the visibility starts bringing that tide back a little more to inbound, people finding you through content, search engines, and, whatever the case may be. And so, when you're in that middle ground, before you start seeing some of that inbound, you can feel really stuck because referrals don't feel scalable, because you don't feel like you have much control over when they're going to come in or not. And networking doesn't feel scalable because it takes a lot of time to go to networking events. And then people end up on all these one-on-one calls with people, just kind of hoping that they might be somebody who's interested in their services or might be a referral partner.
Yeah, it's
and
not
you can
true.
very quickly waste a lot of time that way. So let's see what advice we can give to people who might be resonating with that as to how they could start shifting their approach. And of course, we're not saying get rid of referrals. They're still good. We're not saying completely stop networking. I mean, it might be still a way to make it work, but what ideas can we give them to help them start making that?
So I actually think that referrals are scalable. I think that networking is an absolutely valuable time, but it's around the systems and process that support it, right? So all right, stop treating people like a one-night stand. Right. Everyone's like, there's so many people who are like, hey, let me just have this one-on-one. And I'm trying to sell, I'm trying to get my thing. We've all met those people. And I know that the people listening today are not in that energy. They're not that sleazy, Sal or that sleazy Susie or whatever it is, right? They're not bro marketers. They're not competitors. And they're slipping into those modalities out of lack. Right. And it doesn't matter where you are in your business. I've had people who are running 7-figure businesses and they're like, hey, my referrals are drying up. What do I do? I've built my whole business on referrals. I don't know how to get a lead. And then I've got other people who are like, I've never gotten a referral in my life. How do I get more leads? It all comes down to the system and process and the interaction that you're allowing people to have. Are you enabling people to make an introduction? Now, we know that 3%, and if you don't, you will now, 3% of people are ready to buy. Well, first, they have to be aware that you exist to even consider buying from you. Now, that means that 97% of the time, people are ready to say no. But that doesn't mean that they're not getting ready. So what do you have that's worth sharing? Because there's a lot of crap out there. But if you've got something that's amazing, that's hugely value driven, what I call a firework experience that stops people in their tracks, then what you start doing is you start having people do your lead generation for you for free. That means that you're not looking for referrals, you're looking for opportunities, and your systems and processes turn the opportunity into a client. So it's either a client, a collaborator, or a connector. Any one of those leads to an opportunity for additional connections related to those 3 areas. But do you know what to do with that opportunity? Can you go and do you actually follow up on the podcast? Example, someone said, hey, let me know what podcast you want me to introduce you. I've been on all these. Did you go research them? Did you make a list? Did you email that person and say, hey, here are the 10 podcasts I'd love you to introduce me to? And by the way, here's an introductory sentence. Did you then also follow up multiple times to see if that person made those introductions? No, then you're the reason you're not getting referrals. That's just one example, one strategy, one tactic that you could use. So if you're complaining about not getting referrals, if you're complaining and not about having enough leads, it's because your marketing isn't in a place where you're allowing people to make easy introductions. And my friends, that means that you are responsible for that. And so the buck stops with you, and start looking at the systems and processes you have in place that are allowing for consistency. And are you, in turn, showing up consistently and using that as the biggest objection handler you can use in your business? How you show up for yourself is how you're going to show up for your clients. So look at, are you sharing case studies? Are you building your authority and expertise? Are you being visible? Are you allowing people to know you exist? All of those things allow for an easier introduction.
Awesome. Love it. So you touched on something there that, I wanted to talk about as well. And that's what you call the firework experiences. And both of us have monthly networking events that we run. And in fact, I'll talk about, there's this client last year I was working with, and she was very frustrated with the networking. She's like, it takes so much time, all these one-on-one calls, everyone wants a one-on-one call with me. And then I don't have time for all these other things I need to be doing in my business. And so what we did with her was to have her create her own discussion group. So as she was going to these networking, instead of then saying, okay, now I have to take all the one-on-ones, or I have to like book all these one-on-one calls with people, as she met people in these other networking groups, she invited them into her space, and she made the topic or theme of that discussion group something that she knew if people said, oh yeah, I'll come to that. That sounds interesting. That was already one indicator that they might be interested in the kind of services and things that she offered. Now, she's not pouncing on them and saying, hey, let's talk about how I can help you. She's just saying, I'm doing this thing of value. Would you like, it was nice bumping into you, would you like to come and attend? So now you've brought people into your space, and they've made an indication with an action of signing up for that. And now while they're in your space, you get that opportunity to show a little bit more your expertise, the kind of people you bring together. And rather than 5 to 10 one-on-one calls with people, you just brought 10 people into one call and got a better indication really of which of the ones you should be talking to further. And, each of us has different ways we use our events then to figure out, hey, should we be, we'll talk about our services. We'll invite people to things on our events. They're not huge like sales pitches or anything, but we always have something in our events that people can respond to. And those that respond by showing up to a particular breakout room at the end, in my case, or like sometimes you'll have a call to action to get on a call with you, or to attend a workshop, right? So we're giving that next call to action so that we know whoever came to our networking event, we've now figured out, well, who are the ones that they're checking off more boxes, and we should be moving them towards potentially having
which is
a call
buyer
with us.
behavior, right?
Buyer
and so
behavior.
that checking the boxes is indicative of someone building interest.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that's something to consider then, is turning your networking into something that does feel more scalable. And you mentioned a powerful thing is that now people refer others into our networking events. And so that's lead generation that's happening without us even having to put in the effort other than, right. Just quality event. We just focus on putting a
birds of a feather
event.
flock together. So it's leveraging the power of relationship marketing, which is everything that we're talking about right now. But it's dismissed because it's sexier to do Facebook ads and all that other stuff. I'll tell you, I've closed more deals. I don't run Facebook ads ever. I did it, I think, for 2 months one time, like 5 years ago, as a like, oh my God, maybe I should try this. And I've never done it since then. And, it's really in the value. Most of us have put so much energy and effort into building the networks that we already have. And, think about, even maybe you had a corporate experience. Did you run away from those contacts? Did you hide? Did you disconnect from them on LinkedIn and things like that because you didn't want them aware of what you were doing? That doesn't mean that the goodwill isn't there. You're not, for the most part, I can say that most of the people that are in our world are not these sleazy people. And so the likelihood is these other people want to hear from you. They're not going to be shocked that you're reaching out and saying, I'd love to catch you up on what I've been doing. But we trigger ourselves with our own issues that we project out onto other people. And I will say, part of it is a lot of bro marketers do some really good strategies. It's just that we don't want to use some of the aspects of manipulation, of forcing people to, again, mortgage their houses, to make investments and things like that. But they advocate for themselves. They sell for each other. They take up space. And so if you're not doing some of those things, start looking at, have you been socialized in a way, especially women, to be humble, to be meek, to be quiet, to be subservient? Or are you ready to step out and take up some more space? And you can do it in your way. My way is my way. Your way is your way, but do it in a value aligned way. But my God, start taking up some more space and start claiming your authority and expertise, because no one's going to come around. There is no authority, expertise granting association out there that's going to knock on your door with $1 million check saying you are now the authority and expert in this very specific field of study. So all of this has to do with how are you showing up energetically, because that also creates the attraction. It's what enables other people to want to make the introduction. It's why you want to drive value and be intentional and strategic with what is the experience someone is having, because I mentioned it, you create a triple crown effect. I win because you're making introductions for free for me because you had a great experience. You are connecting to other people you wouldn't have been able to access otherwise, taking away value and building out your own network, even potentially client base. And in turn, the other person that you introduced into the community is getting that same experience. And so there's so much crud out there that why don't you facilitate your community to grow organically, but you can have it grow fast. But you also have to stay in touch. You have to have a system and process to make an ask. It is not set it and forget it. Nothing is ever set it and forget it. You've got to review your ideal client. You've got to review your processes. You've got to look at the data, what's converting, what's not. But if you're not putting intentionality in terms of building your business, maybe you should go get a job.
Bam. Wow. There you go. Well, we could go and go and go, but we're about at time here. So I want to let everybody know, if they want to find out more from either of us about these topics that we've talked about today, what's that next invitation that we have for them? So go for it, Kat. Let everybody know what it is that you have available, or what's the next thing you could do to indicate interest in what it is that you are preaching here today.
Right. Well, I mean, I always have amazing resources that I love to share with people, but a great first next step is come hang out in my community, right? I have a monthly mixer, like you mentioned, that I host. It's at leadbossmixer.com. And I host it every second Friday of the month at 12 p.m. Eastern. Once you get access to that and register, you get access to another secret training all around how to monetize your podcasting efforts, whether you're a host, a guest, or both. And so making sure that you have that process and system in place. And if you want something a little extra, feel free to reach out to me directly and I'll share some templates on how you can follow up so that you're turning either those no's into yeses or getting some of those follow-ups onto sales calls.
Awesome. Good stuff. I'm putting in the comments. So if anybody's watching right now or watching this in the future, there will be a comment where I'll have links to both of our mixers if you want to come set those up. And they're on different weeks. So it's a perfect opportunity. Bam, bam. Come in. Or I don't know, maybe they're actually on the same week. But they're both
often they fall on the same week. One's on Thursday, one's on Friday, but it's different people. And I go to Jason's. Jason comes to mine. This is a very abundance mindset. There's amazing people in both communities. It's just fantastic. So, I actually recommend both.
Totally. Absolutely. 100%. And the other thing I want to say is, we talked a lot about having a customer journey and figuring out what those invites are. I've got a couple resources that will make it a lot easier to figure out what those early invites should be that will indicate who the buyers are and help you start mapping out what that customer journey looks like. So if that interests you, I'm just going to go ahead and say, DM me on LinkedIn if you're watching this on LinkedIn, or you can go ahead and email me at jason@jasonvanorden.com, and I'll make sure to get that to you. Thanks so much, Kat, for doing this with me here today. It was a lot of fun, and I feel like we gave a lot of different, so even if just take one thing from what we said and start applying that, whether to simplify or just make more scalable what you're doing with your marketing. That's our hope for you.
So you've been really good about asking me questions, but let me post one back to you, which is if you could give that one piece of advice, right, to little Jason when you first started off in business, or even to Jason maybe 2 months ago, right? Like as you're scaling, and maybe it's the advice to Jason 5 years from now, right? What would be that thing that you would want people to constantly keep top of mind as part of them building out their successful business, however they decide to define that?
I mean, there's a bunch of different things that come to mind, but here's the one that I guess that I would say the most, and that is that, and it's going to seem so obvious, but I work with a lot of people who are successful coaches and consultants and still don't necessarily know a good answer to this, and it's to know, what problem are you solving and what outcome are you providing? And is it something that's actually top of mind or being presented in a way that is top of mind to the people that you want to reach? It's a quote I always bring to the forefront from Robert Collier: always enter the conversation already going on in the mind of the prospect. And if I were to say it in one word, it's empathy, right? And there's a lot of ways to apply that very effectively in your marketing and sales.
Awesome.
There you go. All right. Thanks for joining us as we're able to hop on. Have a wonderful rest of your day and week. We hope to see you at our mixers and look forward to bumping into you sometime soon. See you, everyone.